Welcome to the Crypto Deep Dive with my special guest, Alex. I am Lori. We're your shortcut to understanding the often wild world of cryptocurrency. Let's get started with our first podcast.
That's absolutely right. No endless scrolling needed. We're here to cut through the noise.
Exactly. We want to pull out the key signals, focus on what really matters, and maybe, just maybe, find a few surprises.
And we'll look at everything, the good, the bad, the amazing.
And yeah, sometimes the stuff that makes you scratch your head a bit. Unbiased insights, that's the goal.
Straightforward conversations, looking at the data, the developments, and just trying to help make sense of it all.
If you like what you hear, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when we drop new content. Okay, so let's dive right in. We are at the back end of Sunday, April 20th, 2025. Let's get a quick snapshot of the market.
Sounds good. What are the numbers looking like?
Right, Bitcoin is currently hovering around $87,251. Okay. Ethereum is sitting at about 1,617. XRP, that's at $2,179. Then we've got XLM at 0.2517 cents, Sol at 141.90, and ADA is trading at 0.6376 cents.
Right, so those are the benchmarks for today. Now, thinking about the week ahead,
Yeah.
what could move these numbers?
Well, one thing to definitely keep an eye on is how traditional markets behave when they reopen after the Easter holiday.
Ah, the TradFi link.
Yeah, we sometimes see that connection, right? Like if the S&P 500 takes a dip.
Crypto can feel that pressure too, at least temporarily, a sort of risk-off move across the board.
Exactly. But what's kind of interesting lately, and maybe you feel this too, is that altcoins seem a bit more resilient.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Compared to some big tech stocks, certainly, there seems to be a bit of a maybe decoupling, or perhaps just relative strength.
Yeah, it's a divergence worth watching for sure.
Definitely something to track.
Okay, another big topic swirling around is all this uncertainty about tariffs, trade deals, that kind of thing, right?
Right. The potential economic impact there is significant.
The general feeling, though, seems to lean towards, well, an eventual resolution, doesn't it?
You'd hope so. I mean, the idea of escalating tariffs, especially between, say, the U.S. and China, it just seems so damaging.
Like that hypothetical 245% tariff on, what, $500 billion worth of goods?
Exactly.
It is
indecipherable. The disruption would be
Okay,
massive.
so let's unpack that. The thinking is because it's so potentially damaging, there's a huge incentive to work things out.
Pretty much. The economic pain would likely force some kind of resolution eventually.
And if we do see signs of progress there, moving towards resolving these trade issues, what happens in the markets? Crypto included.
Well, generally, any sign of reduced economic uncertainty tends to be good for markets. Investor confidence goes up.
And that helps risk on assets like crypto.
Precisely. So positive news on trade could definitely give things a boost.
Now, here's something else that caught my eye. This comparison people are making between gold and Bitcoin.
Ah, yes. The historical correlation argument.
Apparently, gold's recent performance is making waves, hitting certain targets based on chart patterns.
Yeah, from a technical analysis perspective, gold's shown what they call a cup and handle pattern.
Okay, explain that a little.
So, think of the cup as a sort of U-shaped price movement down sideways, then back up to the previous high. Then the handle is a smaller, slight downward drift.
Before a potential breakout upwards.
Exactly. And gold seems to have followed that pattern, hitting targets analysts predicted based on it.
And the connection is, Bitcoin is showing a similar pattern, but maybe on a longer time scale. I saw a target mentioned like $306,000. Some, though probably not Michael Saylor, would call that a wild guess.
Well, yeah, some analysts are pointing to a similar long-term pattern for Bitcoin. But, and this is the big but.
Past performance isn't a guarantee, right?
Absolutely not. Chart patterns aren't crystal balls. But comparing traditional gold, the classic safe haven, with Bitcoin, digital gold, it's an interesting parallel.
So the idea is if gold follows these technicals, maybe Bitcoin as this sort of digital alternative might too.
It's a compelling narrative, certainly, offers a perspective, but definitely not a prediction set in stone.
Okay, good clarification. Let's shift gears to adoption. Some big news from traditional finance. Charles Schwab.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. The CEO announcing plans for spot crypto trading.
Within the next 12 months, they said. That feels like a major stamp of approval from a huge established player.
It really does. It signals growing acceptance within the mainstream financial world.
Yeah.
And it reflects client demand, apparently.
Didn't they mention a huge jump in traffic to their crypto info site, like 400%?
That's the number,
right.
Yeah. Really shows the growing interest from their customer base. I can't ignore that.
So could this Schwab move kind of open the floodgates, more traditional institutions getting involved? Maybe alongside those spot crypto ETFs everyone's waiting for.
It certainly could. For listeners maybe newer to this, a spot ETF just means investors can get exposure to Bitcoin's price or Ether's without actually buying and holding the coin themselves.
Makes it easier, more accessible through familiar channels.
Exactly. More participation from big names like Schwab, potentially combined with ETFs, could bring a lot more liquidity, maybe more stability. It broadens the investor base.
Okay, now let's zoom in on XRP. There is some interesting stuff happening there, particularly in Japan.
Yes, it looks like Japan might be moving towards nationwide bank adoption of XRP for payments by 2025. So at some point this year is the timeline mentioned.
And it's not just banks talking to banks, right? The reports suggest everyday people might be using it.
That's the really interesting part. Potentially using XRP for, daily purchases. And even getting crypto cashback. CTF tokens, they're calling them.
Wow, crypto cashback. So you could spend XRP and get these tokens back, which you could then trade for stuff or cash or just hold?
That seems to be the idea, based on the reports. It would really integrate it into the consumer economy there, if it pans out.
What's driving this push in Japan?
A lot of it seems to stem from SBI Group. They're a major financial institution in Japan, and they've been very supportive of Ripple and XRP for a long time.
Okay.
And they're apparently launching a platform to trade Japanese yen directly for XRP. That could open it up to millions of people.
Huge potential user base then. And it's not just Asia, right? Latin America seems to be seeing some XRP action too.
That's correct. A report came out suggesting XRP was actually the most purchased altcoin in Latin America last year, in 2024.
More than Ethereum or Solana on some platforms.
According to One Exchange, yes. They saw a big jump in people holding XRP across Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil. Their user base grew significantly in terms of XRP ownership.
So we're seeing this growth in actual use, or at least acquisition, in different parts of the world, not just speculation.
Right. It points towards broadening adoption, real-world interest, which is always a key thing to watch in this space.
Definitely. Now, it's always good to look at different viewpoints. There's this argument about Bitcoin having no counterparty risk. What does that actually mean?
Okay, so no counterparty risk basically refers to Bitcoin's decentralized nature. When you transact, you're doing it peer-to-peer on the network. There's no bank in the middle, no broker that could fail or act improperly and cause you to lose your funds. That intermediary risk is removed, proponents argue.
Okay, that makes sense, but that doesn't mean no risk at all, surely.
Oh, absolutely not. Bitcoin still has risks. Regulatory clampdowns, cybersecurity hacks, just the sheer volatility of the price.
Right, so it avoids one specific type of risk, but others are still very much present.
Exactly. It's important to have that balanced.
I also saw something about new address creation on the XRP ledger slowing down recently. Should people see that as a bad sign for the price?
That's an interesting point. But historically, in crypto, price often moves before mass user adoption really kicks in. Not always the other way around.
So fewer new wallets being created right now doesn't automatically mean the price is about to tank?
Not necessarily, no. Adoption can lag price sometimes. And right now, the market seems much more focused on those bigger picture things we talked about. The macro stuff like tariffs, interest rate expectations. And on top of this, institutional utility with XRP is still to kick in, and we are to see if increased utility will drive price up further.
Okay, that makes sense. So, wrapping up for today, key things to watch this week.
Definitely that interplay between TradFi and crypto as markets reopen.
Any news on the global trade talks, especially tariffs?
The signals from gold, and how that Bitcoin comparison holds up.
Growing institutional moves like Schwab entering the spot market.
And that real-world XRP adoption we're seeing in places like Japan and Latin America.
It's never a dull moment in this market, is it?
Not at all. It's complex, always changing. Hopefully this deep dive gave folks a clearer picture of some key dynamics right now.
Yeah, hopefully. What stands out most to you from all this? What questions does it raise for how you're thinking about the market?
That's a good question for everyone listening too. This is just our take, our exploration. We really encourage you to dig deeper yourself, keep learning, form your own views.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. As traditional finance gets more and more tangled up with crypto, what new opportunities does that create? But also, what new challenges might pop up for investors, for the whole financial system? Something to think about in the coming years.
Definitely something to keep mulling over.
Cool. I'd say that's enough from the two of us for this one. It's been fun chatting with you, Alex. For all listeners, if you enjoyed our conversation, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell so you know when our next podcast drops.
Thanks, Lori. It's been fun. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Until next time.